All right, this week's course is Glade Valley Golf Club in Walkersville, Maryland. Now, Glade Valley is actually a pretty nice course, and it's nice enough that I actually downrated Willow Springs to a C to make room for it, because while I don't think that Glade Valley is more than a B+ course, I don't think that Willow Springs really even compares with it at all. It's really marked the difference between the two courses, especially considering that they're both relatively flat courses, and honestly, they're not, super special. It's not like there's any real big advantage in landscaping or anything like that between the two courses. It's just that the Glade Valley is just a real golf course, where Willow Springs is a bunch of fairways and greens thrown together in, a small field. The real thing about it wasn't that I thought that suddenly Willow Springs was so bad. It was more that I kind of have been cutting it some slack mentally in a lot of ways to a fair degree, because I thought it was, serviceable golf, but it really wasn't really that, impressive of a course in terms of the looks of the course or the feel of the course even. But it does provide, that golf substance that we golfers who are really hooked on golf for the sake of hitting balls and making shots, often find in sufficient quantity on any golf course where we're left alone to play. Let's put it that way. And Willow Springs certainly has that going for it. There's not a lot of distractions, and even though the course isn't really all that great a course, it certainly leaves you alone to play. You go out there, you hit balls, you enjoy it, and it's all that good stuff, and it certainly had some challenging shots. But it is not, at its core, it is not really what I would consider a golf course, in the sense that it's not something where I go out and say, oh, this looks like a nice place to play golf. Oh, those, the fairways and the greens look nice here. Oh, the shots and the landscaping, the view of the course in and of itself is appealing. Willow Springs lacks that element. Now, I will say that Glade Valley is not some very impressive course in terms of its looks, but it's certainly decent. It certainly meets the threshold, passes the criteria of what one would say is, you look at it and say, okay, this is a golf course. This is a real golf course. Now, I will admit that the course is almost in Thurmont. It is well up towards the Maryland line, and I have played one other course in that area, which is not really all that impressive a course. In fact, it's much more like Willow Springs than Glade Valley, but Glade Valley was surprisingly good. It wasn't an overwhelmingly impressive or expensive or well laid out course, but it was a straightforward power, bring it if you got it kind of golf course. Nothing too long, 6,800 yards from the back tees. The back tees were not that much further than the blue or the whites, or, there's certainly, there was red, white, blue, and that's it. And the difference between the whites and the blue at most was 25 yards. Nothing ostentatious in terms of long back tees. Nothing ostentatious in terms of short forward tees. Nothing ostentatious in terms of landscaping. Not a lot of flowers, not a lot of long, tall waste, although I did see on a couple of holes very similar greenside bunker waste to what's at Bethpage, in terms of you have a sand trap, then you'll have some waste in the middle of the sand trap and some long grass coming out of that. So even if you do go in the sand, it's not like you really are going to go in there and find that ball and play it on a couple of holes. But at the same time, I did see a number of holes with sand traps that were just ridiculously bad, full of rocks, literally fist-sized rocks in some cases. There were a couple of holes that were where the sand traps on, at least one sand trap was so full of wasps, for instance. It was like just a wasp nest. And so when I hit in there and I just knocked my ball back, away to the other side of the sand trap and played up. And then on the same hole, the sand trap next to the green was really nice white powdery sand. So it was a range of conditions. I didn't see anything really bad. Some of the greens had been aerated enough so that the aeration marks were still there, and some had been left to grow long, so that you could see that there was a clear carpet on the green in terms of the length of the green. But overall, the greens were in good condition. It was sort of a mixture. Some of the greens were really fast. Some of them were really slow. It depends on how much sunlight they'd gotten, how long they were. I wouldn't say they were really slow, but they were noticeably slower than the other greens. So it was a a moderately level course in terms of the maintenance. It had some long rough in places and short rough in places, but never really any spaces where there was just no grass. None of the greens were burned in any way. I thought it was at least above average in terms of the maintenance of the course, without going to the point where it was just maintained, it was groomed, it wasn't like that. There were enough obstructions around the greens in terms of trees and sand traps and swales that it was a challenge to be near the green but not on the green or in front of the green. The course was pretty consistent in giving you the shoot to the green, but making you pay if you were off 25 degrees to the left or right or something like that. Definitely making you pay in that regard, and I certainly did pay a couple of times when I hit an iron that was pin high or maybe 10 yards short of the pin or something like that, but I was off to the left and off to the side of the green and had to chip up onto the green and so forth. I certainly put in some strokes for that, not quite making the shots that I thought I was going to make. But at the same time, I did make some good pars and some good bogeys in terms of putting balls out in front of the green and making my approach shot and leaving it, at least on the front edge of the green, or if not in the center of the green on occasion, and making pars. So I had a wide range. Sometimes I was +6. I was always, I think I only 3-putted one hole, and even then I was glad to 3-putt it. I was like, hey, I don't care. I think it was 15 or something on the back, where I was just glad to get my shot on the green. It was a really narrow green running next to a lake, and I got my 9-iron on there from 100 yards, went ahead and 3-putted. I was perfectly happy. But I'm almost consistently 2-putted otherwise, and it was a question of, did I get on in 4, close to regulation, or was I 6 or 7 in terms of regulation? And if I missed a drive, or I had to take a couple of shots to get on out of the long rough, or out of a trap or around a tree or something like that, I certainly paid the price for not staying in line with the green. And when I was in line with the green, my scores were fairly low, and I think I had a fairly decent backside on the course, especially considering the difficulty. And I think my front side could have been better, but it wasn't overly difficult. I just missed some shots, took some bad decisions. So I think it was a good slope 125 course that made you play an honest game, gave you some good chances off the tee to get out in the fairway and get on the green in regulation, even from the back tees. I didn't have a problem with the length so much as just making sure I didn't hit my second shot into trouble and get my tee shot out into play. Also, there are no real carries off the tee, nothing that stands between the tee boxes and the greens. I think that I saw maybe on number 18, there's a creek that runs diagonally across the fairway. That, and I think one other hole, there was some kind of creek or something off to the side. But for the overwhelming part of the course, you're not going to have to carry anything from the tees. The big thing that I saw was that there were lakes or creeks or something near a lot of the greens. And I would almost say if not a lake or something near the green, there was certainly a stand of trees or woods or something near some side of the green where you did not want to go into there, even if the front side or the left side or whatever was fairly clear. There was almost uniformly a clear boundary behind the green where you just don't want to go in that, and a lot of surprisingly hard to see / easy to get into water, especially number 9, for example, was a great example. It wasn't number 9, it was number 8, it was one of them. Nice downhill shot from the top. It's like a ridge, a gentle ridge in the fairway. So you're playing up to the top of this ridge and you're playing down to the green. Now at the green itself, there's a lake that runs around the side of the green from like the left side to the right side, all around the back. And there is some short amount of grass there, and it is a fairly decent length of grass, but you're not going to be saving balls if you put them long on this hole. They're going to bounce on that grass. They're going to bounce into the lake. So even if you hit something on the green and it has much run to it, it's probably going to run into the lake. So there's a lot of that on this course, but it doesn't have, I guess, the kind of advanced trickery that you'd see on a slope 135, 145 course, where there's, tiered uphill greens and pot bunkers left and right and stuff like that, or really tricky fairway shots or stuff like that. It's not, or carries, or especially the 200 to 225 to 250 yard carries from the tees that differentiate this course from. It is a 125 slope course. It's not a 135 or 145 course. It's a playable 125 course. It basically just asks you not to hit yourself into trouble off the tee or hitting the greens. Very straightforward golf, but at the same time, this was golf. There's no question that this was a golf course as opposed to a field, or a field with some greens on it, and tee boxes, where you basically start on the tee box, you hit out there somewhere, and then you go to the green, and then that's a hole. It wasn't that at all. It was a very decent course, certainly respectable, and the prices were good. It was, I think I paid $25 with a cart for 18. Got there at 3 o'clock during the week, and it was a really good deal. Really good deal. The only problem, if there was a problem, if you want to consider this a problem, was driving out there from DC to Thurmont, and I ended up going up 97 to Liberty Road, and then taking Liberty Road out, to 550, and then 550 up to the backside of Thurmont. It was a great drive. It was a long drive. It was a good 2.5, almost 3 hour drive to get out there, but the weather was awesome. The scenery was really nice, and I enjoyed the drive, and I certainly could recommend it over stopping with an hour drive and playing Willow Springs. I mean, Willow Springs is, I can't kill it, okay? It's not that bad, but it's not good. Let's put it that way, okay? This course, Glade Valley, was not great, but it was decent. It was certainly a decent course. So I have to give it a B. I'm going to give it a B, not quite a B plus, because honestly, there's nothing really to see in terms of views. It is a fairly flat course, and while there's not a lot of not at all, really any houses to see until you get to the 17th, which is where the road comes into the course. You don't see any houses on all in the course. There is a fair number of airplane noise, small planes, big planes, stuff like that, which kind of, hovers around, the periphery of things. But overall, it's a pretty quiet course, nice, great course to play. A good challenge, good challenging holes, and but without overwhelming you. It gives you a chance to hit some good shots, but it certainly challenges you, but it doesn't overwhelm you. And I thought it was a good round. I enjoyed it, certainly. The clubhouse is nice. I didn't really see the rest of it. I just dashed in and dashed out because I got there late and I was running to get out on the course and finish my round before dark. And when I finished, it was dark, so I didn't even go in the bathroom to see if they had showers or anything like that. But it looked like a halfway decent place. Had a nice bar and everything in there. Nice hot bar, not really a dry bar in there at all. But it had a nice balcony and deck and stuff out back and so forth. I think it was decent. I wouldn't call it great. And it's for $25, absolutely a good round, no question. That is Glade Valley Golf Course in Walkersville. I believe it's Walkersville, Maryland. It's almost to Thurmont. It's just southeast of Thurmont in Maryland, and a solid B course. No problem whatsoever with the B rating, and a solid 125 slope and 6750 or so yards. A good round. Absolutely worth a drive.